So let's say that you are sitting at the head of the table of your own organization. Of course, we're saying a fictitious organization, but you run the city. You're the number one. You're the head honcho. You're Poppy. Okay, you're numero uno. My question for today's episode is, who is your number two? If you have to choose between Stringer Bell, Tommy, or Leon, it's your man Parlo from the Parlo Gym Show, and that's what I'm putting on the table. Who is your number two? I need to know. I gots to know. And I'm going to tell you my thoughts and my theories at the end of today's brief episode. But I need you to drop your theories and your thoughts down in the comment section. I'm going to go over each one of these different characters, and we're going to come to an answer. So let's get into it. I'm starting with Tommy on today. Now, you could argue that Tommy was a partner with Ghost in power, but the way he carried himself and the way Ghost treated him, Tommy, in my mind, was number two. Ghost was the man. To me, Ghost was the mastermind. Ghost was the one to get things done. To me, Tommy was more like muscle. Tommy was not a thinker. Tommy was ready and willing to put in work. I mean, he had no problem with Xing anybody off the list. But every now and then, Tommy would come up with a plan that Ghost would say, you know what, Tommy, that was a good idea. But for the most part, Tommy would mess up. I mean, Tommy would just do stuff sometime without thinking. I mean, that was, to me, his strength, the muscle. Now, another strength that he had, and I believe every number two needs to have, is loyalty. Tommy, no doubt, was loyal. He even called Ghost brother numerous times. And anybody that tried to step in between his relationship with Ghost, as a good number two should, you would try to rectify that situation. And I thought that was a good quality that Tommy possessed, because I believe, how can two walk together except they agree? I believe that a house divided against itself won't stand. And even though they were partners, to me, like I said earlier, Tommy, he just was lacking when it came to thinking. Matter of fact, Ghost checked him a number of times. But when it goes down, you need a Tommy in your camp. You need somebody that's ready to put in work, somebody that don't mind doing what's necessary, or what we call the dirty work. So Tommy had some qualities that you would look for in a number two, but Tommy was crazy. I mean, Tommy was unhinged. He wasn't consistent all the time. And Tommy was on that stuff. You can't get high on your own supply. And whenever Tommy got in his feelings over a female, he was very unstable. And so these are some of the qualities that I saw in Tommy. Some could make him a good number two, and some could make him maybe a better lieutenant on the team. But I want to know your thoughts and your theories about Tommy. because again, we're building something. And of course, we're not having a conspiracy. We're talking about fictional characters. And I got to say that because you never know, the feds might be watching. Let's move on to Stringer Bell. Now, in my first few years of watching The Wire, man, I thought Stringer was definitely the man. But the more and more I watched The Wire, Stringer was a good gopher. He was good at going and getting certain things done. But like Tommy, in my opinion, Stringer just did not think the long game. It's like Stringer wanted to be something that he couldn't be. You remember Avon used to tell him, it's the game. It's not that other thing. The game is always the game. And even though Stringer wanted to legitimize the game, which is a good mindset when you consider these shows, he just didn't put the pieces together very well, in my opinion. I mean, he lost $250,000 to Clay Davis. He's the reason, in my opinion, that Avon's whole empire went down, because he's back there scheming and doing stuff trying to get Omar. Now, what he did lack that Tommy had was loyalty. He was only loyal so far, in my opinion. Stringer, when things weren't going his way, he was willing to sell Avon out, and that's what he did. Even my wife, she called Stringer a snake. He was the one that was pushing up on Dee's girl. Matter of fact, he had D killed, and that was his man's nephew. And I understand he did it because he felt like D was going to snitch on the whole organization. I understand that, but are these some good qualities that you would find in a number two? Now, he had game. You remember, he was described as the queen. He was described as the one that would get things done. You remember when Bodie and Wallace and D was sitting down at the chessboard and they were describing the pieces. Now, to me, I think Stringer was more or less like a knight, more so than a queen. That's just my opinion, because of that loyalty factor. You got to have that, Tommy. You got to be loyal. And sometimes your man Stringer, he lacked that. But did he have some moves? Yeah. Was he loyal? For a time. Did he mind putting in work? No. But I don't think he was a long haul thinker. Now, this is just my opinion. He got in his feelings with Omar McNulty. I mean, he just... so many different angles. If you look at Stringer Bell, he had a lot of cracks in his game. But he was Avon's number two. If you're putting something together, would he be your number two? So we got Tommy, we got Stringer Bell, and finally, let's take a look at Leon. Leon, who was the best friend of Franklin. They started out like a 1 and 2, almost like partners. But as the show progressed, you see Leon developing, and his friendship was always there. His love was always there, in my opinion, for Franklin. But was his loyalty always there? It seems like it was when you look towards the end of the show. Leon, come on, he didn't mind putting in work. He didn't mind doing dirt. But he got to a point to where his consciousness and his degree of thinking between right and wrong began to weigh on him. And I'm a big believer of, if you're going to do right, go all the way. If you're going to do wrong, go all the way. You can't straddle the fence. And we see Leon over time, he began to mature and grow and see that what he was doing wasn't right for the community. And you remember even in The Wire when Butch was telling Omar, if you in this type profession and you start having a conscience, you gonna pay for it. And he gave him the world famous quote, conscience do cost. And that's what I see in Leon as a number 2. He started to change, and eventually we saw that he needed to get out the game. He went over to Africa with his wife, but look at that, loyalty came back. He went right back and got in them streets. But he didn't stay long. Why? Because that conscience. I'm telling you, the hardest gangster still knows what's right and what's wrong. So if you're running an organization like Franklin, could you have a number 2 that's kind of with you, but not with you? I mean, willing to make the money, but starting to feel disregard and regret for the way that you're going about getting the money? Man, that's a powerful question to ask. And so I'm putting it down on the table again. Is Leon your number 2 in your organization when you have to look at Tommy, Stringer, and Leon? Oh man, I got to know what y'all think. I got to know your theories. I done laid it down for you. I done shared what I think concerning these 3 characters. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rank them. If I had to choose between these 3, my number 3 would be Stringer Bell. Now, if you would have asked me this 5 years ago, Stringer probably would have been number 2 or number 1. But that loyalty, man, that you can't have your number 2 having their own agenda. You remember what Snoop said about Mike when she was talking to Chris? Your youngin' is on some different opinion type stuff. And Stringer was definitely that. So he would be my number 3. Tommy would be my number 2 because Tommy was just too volatile. He didn't think, man. He would shed blood before anything. He was ready to take it to the street. And of course, my number 1 would have to be Leon. Between these 3 now, this is what we have before us. Leon would be my number 3. I don't know. Should I put Tommy you could work with, but you just don't know with Tommy. At least Leon would tell me up front what he was going to do and what he was feeling. Tommy, on the other hand, he would just do what he want to do. He'd go off and be with a girl. He'd go off, do what he want to do. And you just don't know. At least with Leon, he would be straight up. You remember how Leon told Franklin a couple of times what he was feeling? Yeah, he would bring that to the table. So that's mine. Stringer Bell, number 3. Tommy, number 2. And Leon, number 1. It's your man, Parlo Gems, on the Parlo Gems Show. Let me know your comments, your theories, and who would be your number 2 in your organization. Let me know down in the comment section. Catch me on my next one. Peace.